Hi, everybody. So today I was reading an article about signs of manipulation in relationships, and I thought that it would be worth discussing with all of you since the reason why I went to that article was I was trying to understand if I was in a relationship, wasn't a partner type relationship, but a friend type relationship with somebody, and if they were manipulators or not. Now, first, let me stress that we all manipulate a situation on occasion. All humans do this. So it's not necessarily that it's deviant if somebody does it just a little bit, because we all do. We all use the art of persuasion to get things that we want during certain times or to help somebody see our point of view or our side. So that's just a normal thing people do. But when does it tip over into something that isn't healthy? So some signs of manipulation in a relationship could be, according to this article, and there's some more, gaslighting, passive aggressive behavior, lying and blaming, threats, withdrawal or withholding, and isolation. So a lot of these things happened to me when I was in an abusive relationship a long, long time ago. And one of the big things that happened is that isolation factor, where your partner or the person you're in a relationship with isolates you away from other folks who might be presenting a different narrative on the relationship. And just also, if they can isolate you out, it's a little bit easier to control you because your reality becomes their reality. They start shaping your reality because you aren't getting out and about and having other things come at you that are different. A person may do things that are really gaslighting, like you're crazy, you're thinking too much about this, you're too emotional, you're fill in the blank of whatever it is. That's gaslighting you when you really think there's a problem and you're trying to bring it up and they're poo-pooing it or acting like it's ridiculous. That's something to pay attention to. Now, again, we all do this on some level because we don't understand really what the other person is saying, or maybe we don't want to hear what they're saying, or we don't have the skill set to deal with what they're saying. So we might do that. We also might say things like that in order to get people to feel less big about the situation. Like if somebody tells you something and you might say, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. I'm talking about when people are always doing that whenever you're approaching them in a relationship saying, here's something that's not right about the relationship. They have 100 reasons why they're right and you're wrong. And they gaslight you with like, you're oversensitive, you're paying too much attention to this, you do exactly the same thing. Then there's passive aggressive behavior that people can use. And that's really like avoidance tactics. They might not talk to you for a while. Their sarcasm might be really, really mean. They might say things about you and then say, oh, just joking. They might do things like pouting or be like, make sure you know they're mad. Now, again, people do this all the time normally. I'm talking about obsessively doing it all the time without ever hearing your side of things. Then there's a lying and blaming, which is huge, I feel. And this was a tip-off for me when I was trying to decide if a current relationship I am in is manipulative or not. The lying and blaming, the trying to stretch the truth, the blaming their own actions on either you or some outside situation, rather than saying, okay, yeah, I hear you, maybe that was uncool of me or whatever. Instead, there is kind of a stretching of the truth, an outright lying of the truth, a different narrative than what you remember. And then they tell you you're not remembering it right. And little white lies that they just start talking, and they get into, and they consider them harmless. But when they start doing it all the time to really just justify what they're doing, that's a red flag. Threats are coerciveness, using threats or force to get you to do something. That's kind of being very manipulative. So they might do things like, if you leave me, I'm going to hurt myself, or if you don't do what I want, I'm going to quit my job, or do things like that. They're kind of threatening you. If you make this hard on me, then I'm going to lose my job and we won't have any money. They can also do things like withdraw, withholding. They'll not talk to you openly anymore. Their words will be short. They might keep things from you like affection or sex or something that's really significant in your lives. They might be like, oh, I don't want to go out to dinner or something like that. They might withhold it, even though normally they would go. And then there's this whole isolation factor that we talked about, in that they really try to isolate you out from others. And I don't think it's really a conscious decision, or at least I didn't feel it was that way when I was in a really abusive relationship. I actually felt the person was doing that as a self-preservation way of interacting. Like they didn't really know how to interact with my family and friends. And instead, they just started doing this isolation thing. And before they knew it, it I was completely isolated. I didn't talk to my family. I didn't have my own friends. I only had his friends and friends he approved of. And it was just a whole host of craziness. And it really took me getting a job where I got friends of my own who then started pointing out the situation for me to actually go, oh shit, maybe I am in a relationship that's not healthy for me. So there's a lot of things that you do on your side that might tip you off that you're in this kind of relationship. You might always be defending yourself or your own beliefs, like just going overboard. And I know this is something I still do now in relationships. It's a byproduct of that really bad relationship I had, that I constantly feel like I need to defend myself. I need to prove my worth constantly all the time. You might also not feel safe in your relationship. That was another thing that happened to me when I was in the abusive relationship, is just not knowing when the person was going to explode, what was going to happen. If I asked for something, it would be received well or not received well. I didn't have any trust in my partner. I didn't feel like I could rely on them for anything. I was essentially on my own. And there was a serious sense of doubt. Like everything the person said, I just didn't believe. And I'm kind of getting to this place in the relationship that I'm in now with this person, in that I just have lost all faith that they're telling the truth or that they're going to follow through with things. And you can have a series of a serious self-doubt yourself, which is exactly what I had, which kind of led to this unworthiness and all these other things that being in a long-term manipulative relationship will do to you. You kind of lose your self-worth, you lose your value, you lose your self-esteem. If you find yourself frequently apologizing for things you believe weren't really wrong, but somehow you're just convinced that they're wrong, that's a red flag. Frequent feelings of confusion, that's also a situation. I think a lot of it's due to gaslighting. And you can just feel like you don't know who you are anymore. When I got out of that relationship, I didn't really know who I was anymore. I didn't even know if I liked coffee. I didn't know what kind of foods I liked. I was really afraid to spend any money. Like if I spent $2 on coffee, I was freaked out. And I had to really learn to let that go and let myself have that at certain times. And I had to really figure out, what do I like? I don't even like these clothes I'm wearing. I'm just wearing them because he wanted me to wear them, and I was afraid not to wear them, and my hair and all kinds of things. Like literally everything about myself was up for question during this relationship. And it was really hard to then figure out who I was after I got out of the relationship. And so much of how I interact now in the world is still a byproduct of that relationship, even though I've been out of it for over 20 years now. Why manipulators act the way they do? I don't really know. I feel like they have such low self-esteem and self-worth that they feel the need to dominate over other people so they can feel like they have power for a little while. I do believe, especially in the toxic relationship I was in, that person really just wanted power. They were so powerless. They had such a horrible childhood where they didn't have any power. Horrible things happened to them, and they were really grappling to have power all the time. I also think, like in the situation I'm thinking about now, this was learned behavior from a parent that also did the same thing. So it's kind of, you're growing up in an environment where the same behaviors are being modeled to you. And that's how you learn how to engage in a relationship. It can also be somebody who has high levels of anxiety. I was talking about this with somebody else the other day who has high level of anxiety. And I was saying, it seems to me like people with high levels of anxiety really need to judge everything in this really harsh way all the time, just to alleviate their anxiety a little bit. And he was like, yeah, 100%. I totally do that just so I can manage anxiety. If I decide someone's lame, then I don't have to pay any attention to them or worry about getting to know them. So, what do you do if you find yourself in this type of relationship? I want to tell you that it's easier when the person is a friend or something like that. You can just slowly kind of disengage a little bit more and a little bit more. But if it's your partner, it can be really hard to escape that type of relationship. And it can be really, really scary, and it can be unsafe. So if that is where you're finding yourself, try and seek some allies. Try to go to maybe family or friends that had warned you before about the relationship, or people you know in your community. I was lucky enough that I knew somebody who was kind of big and powerful. And when my ex started threatening me, was actually threatening to kill me, this particular person that I knew went, I'll put a stop to that right now. And they rallied together and really stood up for me in a way that I couldn't have done for myself at the time. And I don't know if I would have done it for myself, it would have had as much impact. But just having my ex realize that there are these people out there who are watching over me and they're not going to take any of his crap made a huge, huge difference. And so you got to be really careful when you're trying to get out of it. You really need to seek help, and whatever that may be, allies, people who can be there with you and help you. Maybe it's a therapist. Maybe you're not quite ready to leave the relationship and you want to get into some marriage counseling or coaching or something like that. It can maybe be a coach. There's so many other modalities that can really help you that aren't in the clinical realm too. So looking into those and figuring out what works for you. If you already have something, work with that. Meditation is a really great tool to use for this because you can escape to your own mind and really grapple with, was I out of my mind when I don't like this, or is this a legit complaint that I'm having? And just really get some clarity for yourself. The other thing is, when you're in these kinds of relationships, you never have a moment to seek clarity because you're not allowed to do that. You're going from one crisis to another all the time. And you're in this kind of partial fight or flight situation 24/7, and you really can't collect your thoughts to even analyze if what you think is happening is true, or it's the gaslighting stuff is true, or what, or somewhere in between, or what is it. So taking those moments, if it's not meditation, it's taking a walk, maybe it's using your lunch hour when that person's not around and you're at work, whatever it is, find a way to just be with yourself and your own thoughts and organize it. Maybe it's journaling. You can really learn a lot from just free flow journaling. It's incredible. You'd be amazed. And then if you want to stay in a relationship, or like for me, if I'm going to stay in this friend relationship, maybe I need to do things like limit my time with that person, really realize that that person can only give these things and not more than that. And this relationship will never be deep because that person doesn't have the capacity to go deep. So I have to come to terms with, if I still want to be in this friendship, I need to distance. I need to realize that this is what it is. This is what you get. You're not going to get anything deeper or better than that unless the person works on themselves. And am I okay with that? And then what boundaries can I set within myself? I don't even have to tell that person the boundaries, but it could be like, if you lose all trust in somebody, it could be like, okay, I'm never going to rely on that person again, or I'm not going to ask that person to do this with me or go there. Have these internal boundaries that you're going to work with. And if it comes down to it, maybe I'll just decide that my energy, time, worth, care, understanding, and love is just wasted on this relationship. And if I let the relationship go, I could have another one fill its place that can deliver all those things. So those are some things that I want to leave you with. I also think it's really important, if you're in a scary situation, to have emergency numbers on your phone or with you at all times so that you can access somebody if you find yourself in a violent situation. It might be a supporter, it might be 911, it might be the cops, it might be the guy next door, it might be the woman down the street, it might be your best friend. Whatever those things are, gather them together. It might be a domestic violence hotline. It might be a suicide prevention hotline. It might be any of these things that you think that you need. It might be Uber so you can escape. Whatever that is, have all those things at the ready to go, because if you hit a violent situation, you may only have moments to deal with it. And these are not all the ways you can handle a relationship like this. I just want you to know that if you are in a relationship like this, here are some of the red flags for yourself and what you see in the relationship, and to get support and get help if you need it, and to know that you are worthy of good relationships. You are worth good relationships. You are worth good love. You are worth good kindness. You are worth those things. And okay, one of the things these people do, and this happened to me too, was you get the feeling that you're used goods. And if you leave the relationship, no one will want you. And this is the best you're ever going to get because you're such a loser. That's so not true. I want you to know that's part of the manipulation game to make you feel isolated and to keep you where the person wants you to be. It's a desperate ploy from the other person to keep you from leaving. It's their desperation. You have to understand it's not necessarily like they're the most evil people in the world. They're just really grappling with a lot of things that they aren't dealing with. And that's coming out as this desperation to keep you. And so realize that those things aren't true. There are other people out there who will love you and care about you and want you in their lives. You are worthy of that, and it's out there for you. So know that I love you and that I care about you and I support you, and you have this. And really, really, if you're in a desperate situation, seek help. Seek help, my friend. But for now, take good care and know that I love you and I support you, and I'll see you in the next one.